Hey, this is Sam from Your Property Network, and it's my favourite part of the job today, talking to a fellow property investor and developer about real life deals and when they go well and the challenges along the way, because let's be honest, property is full of obstacles. And today I'm really pleased to be joined by Dan Linton. Dan sent through a number of awesome deals that we're going to deep dive into today. So Dan, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, you okay?
So
Yes.
Dan, you told me you've been a sort of YPM member for a number of years and reading YPM magazine and have thought about kind of putting some of your projects in the magazine at some point. So it's brilliant to have you on board. We literally love it when we have our members being featured and we can talk about their real life projects. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Because we're not really born property investors. So what were you doing prior to this?
Yeah, so I definitely wasn't born a property investor. I was probably your standard accidental landlord. So I had a corporate job for 20 years at a nuclear power plant, and my wife was a beautician, and she wanted her own salon. So we had agreed to look for a building for her to act as open her own beautician and hair salon. Ironically, we got the funds from that through adding value to our own house that we bought, that we lived in our family house. We'd added value to that, and we were refinancing that to purchase a commercial building for my wife to operate her salon in. We found the perfect building, which was right around the corner from our house, and it come with 2 flats above it, which we weren't planning on buying at the time. That wasn't usually part of the deal that we were thinking, but the building was perfect. The price was great. It was actually an old post office. So we bought it, come with the 2 flats. We were already tenanted. Quickly realised over the first sort of year and 2 that it was a good way of bringing in a second income, and just got the bug from property really from there.
So you'd learnt the skills kind of adding value to your own home and then taking on this commercial unit for your wife. You see the opportunity there and it then becomes obvious and life now is quite different for you, I think, isn't it? You full-time in property or?
Yeah, full time. So that was the first deal was 2017, and then it went slow for about 3 years, slowly building up and realizing that that's what I want to do. Then when it was, round about 2020, I sort of timed in really well with COVID when we were all at home and not working properly. And that's when I really got a real bug for it and started to do some real learning, research, mentorships, getting more involved in property, and then realizing that I wanted a plan to come out of my day job and be more full time in property, which is where we're at now.
Okay, and you mentioned sort of mentorships and kind of like property training and that. Is there anybody that you work with in particular that kind of stands out that you think, yeah, that they made a real difference to our property business?
Yeah, so Danny Inman at Prosperity Network, he's been a brilliant help with what he's provided there. Emma Stubbins individually, so she helped me along with one of the deals we're going to be discussing, which is the large 16-bedroom, 19-person HMO. So she's really helped me along with that and held my hand from start to finish, because as we'll probably get into, that the HMO was a new territory for me. So without having that mentorship and that other support, I would probably still be in my corporate job, I think, today.
Okay, fab. Well, I can't wait to talk about that one, but we're going to save that one to last and kind of work up through the deal chain a little bit. So,
Yeah.
let's talk about what for many people might appear to be a kind of more bread and butter deal, and this is the property that you've got in on Dudden Drive. So, can you tell us about the building, how you found it, what it was, and what was the opportunity that you saw with it, from it?
Yeah, so this got brought to us direct from a local mortgage advisor. So again, it was key with the local relationships with people in the profession. We do get deals brought to us, and this one was brought to us where there was a family member who died. The property had been left to the son and daughter. One of them was living in the property still, but there was other concerns from the family that they weren't looking after the house. They wanted them to sell the house, get a fresh start. There was a lot of issues, I believe, around the property, and so they said, "Would you buy it?" Apologies, we don't know what state it's in, but you can go and have a look at it. We can give you a key, and you can let us know. We actually did make an offer just from the postcode and driving past the property of 80,000, because we felt like the price would be worth around about 120, 130 at least on that street. So we said that's what we thought we could give. We then went to view the property, and it was floor to ceiling in everything you can imagine, from a very large dog that they've obviously had in there that couldn't find the bathroom properly, furniture, rubbish, food. Honestly, it was just matted. We walked back out. There was flies everywhere. It was as bad as they get. So we ended up having to renegotiate and just said, we don't particularly want this building for anywhere near the price we're willing to pay. We actually offered 40,000 for it, explained the condition it was in. They just said they just wanted rid of it. They were happy for us to buy it at that. So then we thought, well, this is a great deal. It'd have been a good deal at 80 if it was just a bit tired, but at 40, even considering the state it was in, it was just a lot of stuff in the property. So we got the offer accepted at 40k, and we actually
And not a light refurb, this one, was it?
no. So the first biggest task was emptying it. So we actually got a waste guy, and he emptied the property for roughly £5,000. So we then ended up being sort of 45 grand in on what we were willing to pay 80 for, if that made sense. So by the time it was emptied, then it was a blank canvas, and it was a full everything. Then rewire, new heating throughout, brand new kitchen, brand new bathroom, a little bit of a rejig of the rooms. We had to do a bit of work front garden, back garden. So yeah, it was a full refurb.
And tell us about the kind of, the end valuation, because you thought originally it's going to be worth about 120,000, done up. That was actually a little bit on the conservative side to come the end of it then? A pleasant
It
surprise.
was. Yeah, well, we actually brought the ceiling of the street because of the standard that it was. So yeah, we were always a slightly conservative with the valuation, but we didn't sort of cut any corners with the refurb. Hopefully, the pictures can sort of show that with the cardine flooring, and it wasn't a standard refurb. It was really really high end. So it's give us a better valuation than what we actually hoped for.
And what a transformation as well, from looking at the kind of before pictures to after as well. Like there's just no, it's unrecognisable. And we always talk about the financial rewards as property investors, but there's a massive intrinsic reward as well, I think, to like taking something just in such a state and creating a family home from it. So I'm sure you're very proud of the work.
Absolutely. That's one of the best things about this job, isn't it? I guess it's seeing the projects come to life. The demand in our area for family properties is through the roof. So the more more you can do like that at the minute, there's a really really high demand, and the receiving really good rents at the minute. The yields are very strong.
Well, I was thinking, looking at the rent that you're receiving. So just talk us through the kind of monthly rent and the kind of monthly cash flow on this property, because it's pretty astounding actually.
Yeah. So we're achieving 1250 per month. Um, so it's 3 bed. I think it's got some off road parking out the front, and it's also got a front garden and a back garden. So they don't come up a lot on the rental market. They're not common. So when they do come up, they're very popular, especially to that spec. We pulled 75% back of the value from the valuation, and we've lent that at just over 4%, 4.29%, I believe. So our mortgage payments are around about £366, a couple of pound short of that. So yeah, from a cash flow perspective, it's really strong. considering the money we
Yeah, like
get.
I've looked at the figures, £850 a month cash flow, and then the bit we kind of missed out on as well is when you came to refinance. I was going to ask you how much money you ended up leaving in the deal, but it didn't quite work out like that, did it?
No, we actually got a little bit back. We actually got a bit extra back on top. This was one of three deals we did actually in the same month, and we got a similar result on the other two. But yeah, this was probably the best one out of the three.
Okay. Well, what a great project, like I think it's such a win-win all round. You've taken a property that's kind of, really, I would say unloved, but it's gone way beyond that, in a complete state of disrepair. You've taken a headache away from someone who just doesn't want that worry anymore, and put in the hard work and turn this into something to be really proud of, and an amazing financial return as well, and creating a home that someone can be delighted to call their home as a
Yeah,
tenant as well. You must be really, really pleased about that. So fab deal, fab deal.
yeah. Yeah, we'd
Let's
like
talk
to do
about.
these. We'd like to do these ones every week if possible, but obviously they don't come around that often at them prices. But it's a shame because yeah, I really enjoyed that one.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because the other two deals that we're sort of talking about are very different to this, and I wanted to, we can sometimes when we talk about properties, it's really important to be kind of laser focused on your strategy and what you're doing, but maybe not. That's not the case. Maybe actually, different types of deals come along, and we need to be able to understand how to monetize those or how to undertake those. Would that be your experience?
Yeah, I think it's not this isn't necessarily a specific strategy as such that we do, but almost our strategy and strong point is our local area. So me and my partners are all from our area. There's a real potential in our area at the minute because the price to get into the market is really low, as you can see by some of the numbers in these deals. We've got a lot of investment in the area coming from Ministry of Defence and the government. So this is where we build all the submarines. So we've got a lot of work coming into the area, a lot of contractors move into the area, either short term or actually coming up with the families. So our strategy really over the next couple of years is we know the area, we know the good bits and the bad bits, and we feel like there's a lot of growth potential in the area. So we are willing to do almost any type of strategy within this area, because between us we have got bits of experience in all the different strategies really.
Okay, brilliant. Well, let's talk about the next one because it's a very different type of deal, but a fantastic one. And I've been told by a few people sometimes, and I've done some commercial conversions myself. And one of the things that everyone's always said is like, don't do pubs, steer away from pubs. Nightmare to get planning. Really, really difficult because they want to keep it as a community resource and all that. And so I haven't done a pub. I've done care homes and listed buildings and stuff like that. But this is a pub, and a pub with a really cool name as well. So it was called the Dirty Duck, which is like it's a hilarious name, isn't it? So tell us about this. What was it? It had been closed for a while, and how did you find out about it?
So yeah, it was shut for a while. It was been closed for a number of years, and somebody had bought it and put planning permission in to keep it as a pub on the ground floor and put, I think it was 5 rooms upstairs on the top 2 floors. That didn't seem like a great scheme to me, to be honest. One, I think you'd probably struggle from a lending perspective having resi above the pub. And two, it just didn't feel right. And I think, as most places are at the minute in the country, pubs are a bit of a dying trade. So the guy who had bought it to do that had got partway through the planning application and partway through the ripping out to start the work, and then decided he wanted to sell it because the job, I think, had come probably a bit of an eye opener. It had been too much for him to deliver. So he was putting it back in the auction. So it was actually an auction purchase. This, so we bought it at auction. My idea was that we could get a lot better scheme from a planning perspective to really up the value. we were hoping to get it for anywhere underneath 60,000 at the auction. He actually paid less than that, the guy who was selling it, and we got it. The hammer was down at 59k. So yeah, we got a good deal on that. 59,000 went straight to the architect that I had experience with. And Andrew Thompson, he's actually he's been in your magazine before a couple of times. I've seen him in there. He did a really great scheme. I think we tried a couple of extra rooms, but the council sort of knocked us back a little bit. And we've ended up with 12 rooms in that scheme, which then you're into the commercial valuation element of the HMOs, and that's where you can get a really good GDV at the back end. So because of my other projects,
Were you confident in terms of getting this change of the kind of planning scheme before you bought it? Had you had sort of conversations at that stage, or is it a punt?
No, so I was confident. I recently had one approved a lot larger in the same town, and there wasn't much of an issue with that. Like I said before about the contractor element, the demand in the area, it's perfect type of properties that we need in the area. And I was confident that I would have got the commercial size HMO into it.
Okay, great. And so the plan at this stage is to keep it. That you're going to build it out, and is that what happens, or what did you decide to do?
So yeah, we were going to build it. We were going to keep it. We were going to build it. The numbers stacked up really well, but then just as things were happening with other projects that we've got going on, it was just this felt like one that I could sell, flip it on. I haven't put much effort into it. Probably stepped foot inside the building about 3 or 4 times, I think. So really didn't spend too much time on this one. And the valuation of it with the planning, it just come back and it just felt like a good one to pass on. And I think you mentioned win-win before. I mean, this is a brilliant win-win. It's the guy who's bought it off us is a developer, and he's got a great deal. We've got a great deal. Everybody's happy. So it ended up going to auction with a guide price of 140k. It got pulled from auction because nobody was interested, and then everybody started contacting me after the auction. So then after the auction, they were bidding against each other with me. And if one of them had have logged into the auction, they'd have got that building for 140 grand. Yet they were bidding after the auction, and I ended up accepting 175 grand in the
Okay,
end.
your own private auction.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I mean, one person who I knew who was after it that wasn't introduced from the auction house. He was saying to me that he was going to wait and see if it sold at auction. Somebody else who had downloaded the pack and they were interested. So yeah, it was people who had been having an eye on it, but they didn't want to go through the auction route. They just got in touch with me afterwards. So we ended up agreeing a deal at 175, which I was chuffed with, and yeah, kind of move on to the next one then from there.
And this delivered a sort of 90, I think it was about £94,000 profit. I wanted to ask about the timescale from the day you completed on the purchase of the building to the day of the completion on the sale of it. What sort of timescale was that over?
It was less than 12 months. It was less than 12 months from us getting the planning, doing everything. I think if I remember rightly, but I didn't spend too much time. Certainly wasn't 12 months of work. It was a case of we tried it at an auction. It didn't work. We lost a bit of time trying to go in the auctions with it. But then, yeah, I would imagine it was about 12 months. But yeah, I didn't spend too much time on it or in that building. But it'll be nice to see
Brilliant.
it done. It'll be nice to see it finished. The work's just started, actually.
Yeah, really, really interesting to see what someone else's vision of it when it's done as well, and how that might have been, different to your offering or whatever. And I was going to ask as well in terms, well, not ask, but just sort of talk about that kind of return on time as well. In your previous career, I would imagine to earn the best part of 100 grand, it's a lot of hours in, isn't it? It is for most of us. So this is kind of working smarter rather than harder in terms of making your money work and finding these opportunities. So
Absolutely, and again, it's going back to education. When I took time out to learn about how property works, and at this point when I bought that, I didn't own any finished HMOs, but I was well aware of the value that commercial HMOs can bring, and the GDV numbers are really good just because of the learning that I'd done. So being able to be away from my corporate day job has given me time to learn these different strategies, even without necessarily doing them all, but knowing enough about them to be able to put them into action.
yeah, to spot an opportunity and then kind of dig deeper, I guess, as you understand. Okay, here's a possibility for us. So from a nearly 100k profit, we're now going to move on to which I think is probably like your most exciting deal that you kind of presented to us, and it looks awesome. So this is a commercial building that you spotted an opportunity within that. So tell us a little bit about it. What was it and how did you find it?
So this was the deal that was going to get me out of my day job. This was the once I found out what I was going to do, this was what it was. So we knew we needed something high cash flowing. So this was with my mentor at the time. We needed something high cash flowing to replace my day job. And that's why we decided to go down the HMO route. I hadn't done any HMOs. We just thought having one of this size might be useful from a cash flow perspective. And when you run the numbers to do it in flats or keep it as commercial or do a HMO, then it was just a no-brainer. So how I found the building, it was actually my father-in-law's building. Ironically, it's the building I first met my wife. So it was my father-in-law's gym, and I trained there, and my wife used to work there every now and then. So this is going back 20 years nearly, yeah. So my father-in-law ran it as a gym. COVID come, it was a bit of a tough time for gyms, as you remember. A lot.
I own two gyms myself. I know it's a very, very tough business during
Yeah,
COVID. Yeah.
yeah. So he didn't want to lose the gym as such to some random guy buying it. He still wanted to operate it as a gym, so he knew if I could buy the gym and the deal that I would let him still operate his gym in there. It just meant he was just trying his best to keep the gym going as long as possible. Really, I was well aware that at some point the gym would end up. He was of an age where he was never going to do it forever. So it was always a bit of a longer term investment for me because it's 5,000 square foot building, good area. It was just always going to be a great building to hold anyway. So, but then you try getting a loan from a bank in COVID for a gym. So the banks they were very risky with lending anyway, but trying to lend to a business that had a national shutdown was another real big hurdle for us. Hence why the borrowing rates we had to lend was 9.9%. That was the cheapest rate I could get at the time, but the numbers just sort of still stacked up, and that would have probably put a lot of people off, I'd imagine. I had to put a 50% loan to value, and it was 9.9%.
Yeah, that's
So
painful. So
you wouldn't do that now.
no, no. So tell us about it then. So the vision for it is what the whole thing's going to an HMO, or you're keeping part a commercial element part of
No,
it,
so
or
we got some plans done. I used a local architect first. He had a massive build cost. He could get 11 rooms in it. It just didn't sit right with me. The numbers didn't work right for 5,000 square foot for 11 rooms. Didn't seem right. I then reached out to a more specialist HMO architect, which is Andrew, who I mentioned before, who'd done the duck as well. He had a look at the scheme for me. He originally drew 17 rooms in, a little bit of back and forward with the council. We've settled with 16, so we've managed to get 16 really good size rooms in there, and that was the plan really, to just fully do it as the HMO, from top to bottom, get some development finance, build it out, refinance it, and then hopefully the cash flow then would have allowed me to finish my job.
Now, this is quite a big step up in terms of like the types of deals and particularly the kind of type of building work, it sounds like. So how did you find kind of moving into that space and working with like sort of larger contractors and different types of building things? Did you have a project manager or how did that work?
Yeah, it's interesting really, because again, I probably took some risks that other people wouldn't advise, but I was really keen on keeping my schedule, my budget, sorry, to schedule. So I've done a lot of the developments which were smaller, a couple of commercial conversions and property, residential property, just general refurbs, back to brick refurbs, but nothing of this size and scale. But there is the trusted builder that I use for it. He'd never done a large HMO before either. So he'd done some other jobs for us, and he still works for us now. But he was keen to try it. I was keen to try it. So it was almost like we were both using it as a bit of a benchmark to see if this was something that would work and if we could do it. So you could say it was risky, but it managed me to keep my price down. The key thing was the working relationship I already had with him. He knew, it was my first one of this, and I knew it was his. So we did help each other throughout the whole project, and I played a real big part in managing this one myself. So it did take up a lot of time, but I was almost on site every day while this was going ahead.
And this really is a phenomenal deal in terms of the transformation of a building, but also the kind of financial performance of this as well. Talk us through that then, the kind of end valuation, the kind of money left in, the monthly kind of turnover and cash flow, and then after that, we want to talk about the tenant profile as well, if that's okay. So yeah, just talk about the sort of financial performance of it first of all.
Okay. So we got a valuation done prior to the work starting, because I was using a bridge development finance to pay for it. And we had around about 340 grand in, I think, for the build was what we were hoping to spend. And they've come and done a valuation out, and I paid 100k for the building, which was a good price at the time anyway. They'd valued it at around about 200 at the time of starting the refurb. So I already had quite a lot of equity in it. So getting the development finance was quite easy to do. We got the development finance, and they GDV'd it. They estimated it to be on a 13/13.5% yield or something like that. So I thought that their rental figures were very safe. I thought I could get more. So off their yield calculation, I was actually expecting the valuation to be a lot more, which I'll come to at the end when I come to the reval. So we did the build. There was absolutely bumps along the way, like there always is, but nothing was show stopping. But there was a few things that was needed to use the contingency fairly early. We've got the job done to a great spec, which hopefully the pictures can show that. We got the valuation back in, and the company who come and valued it, I actually used the same company who did it the first time because I thought there'd be some continuity there, and they valued it this time at an 18% yield, instead of a 13/14. So I was actually expecting a 1 million valuation, but you could say that's maybe a bit adventurous or a bit greedy. We ended up with a 730k valuation, which still is great. So we'll actually get 472,000 back off the refinance, which should leave me money back out is just over £110,000. And so all my cash back plus 110, and then the cash flowing numbers are also what was always the main driver for this, really. The fact that I've lent a bit less than what I was expected does mean I'm going to cash flow a bit more. So the monthly payments on the interest only product was just under £3,000 a month. So with insurance and everything, it is probably just over £3,000 a month is what my costs will be for mortgage and insurance.
And and what's the cash flow and how much what's your kind of rent roll monthly on it?
So rent roll. So even though I have got a letting agency and we have staff in our letting agency, we don't manage HMOs. And I didn't like the idea of managing the HMO room by room basis. So with contacts that we've got from the agency, we do have some company let agreements with our larger properties, again, to support the contractors in the area. So I was approached by a company that I do already do some business with. They wanted to take a look at the building. So they've actually took the building on a 3-year lease. They took a building on a 3-year lease, and their lease is for 11,000 per month. So 132 a year that works out. It was just I could probably get slightly more if I was doing it individual rooms, but the £11,000 per month on a lease means I've got zero voids, zero management. I, I don't get the calls to be dealing with issues. It's all managed by them. It was just a no-brainer, really.
And what a phenomenal deal! And as a deal to kind of get you out of the day job, that's, I guess, I went a long way towards that.
It did. It did. I mean, like I said, that monthly cash flow was always going to be the thing that got me out of my day job. I did end up leaving a bit before that because other things, me letting agency that set off as my side income, has ended up taking off really well, and we've now got staff. We've got 4 staff members when it was just me. We're into our second office and won a couple of national awards, so it's doing really well, the letting agency. But then now this is finished, it's just a nice end to it all, really.
And what a phenomenal deal, and for many people, a life-changing deal. Actually, it sounds like it was for you,
Oh, it
Jamie.
is.
Although
Yeah, definitely.
So, I just want to talk a little bit. You mentioned a few speed bumps along the way in terms of the build. Can you just elaborate on those? What things didn't go to plan quite according to plan?
So because when I bought the building and when we're starting to refurb, it was a commercial building and it was operating as a gym. It had everything in it. It was carpeted. It was decorated. There was furniture everywhere. There was obviously gym equipment everywhere, boxing rings and everything else. Um, so then when we stripped it all back, we'd started to notice some real structural issues. So the whole first floor is one large concrete slab, and there was a crack from north to south and east to west. It was almost like the whole floor was in 4 quarters. So we had to go back to the drawing board with the structural engineer, and there's probably enough steel in that building to hold Wembley Stadium up now. We had to steel a lot and support it. So that was a big one. The roof as well, because it was a large building. We hadn't actually been up on the roof to inspect it. It looked fine from the road. When we got the scaffold up there and got to the roof, where we thought it looked fine, it hadn't, and it needed replacing. So these were 2 things that we'd found really early on in the project. So it started off, we'd almost used all of our contingency in the first sort of 4 to 6 weeks. But then after that, it sort of, because it was back to brick and you knew where we were at, there was nothing else hidden. The rest of it sort of did go to plan.
Okay, great. I mean, what an amazing deal. And those sorts of buildings don't come along all the time. You mentioned prior to us sort of hitting the record button on this when we were chatting offline that you've got quite a lot of other projects in the pipeline. Can you tell us what that looks like? And are you doing predominantly kind of buy to hold now? Or are you still looking at kind of opportunities to sort of flip on?
Yeah, so mainly holding is the primary strategy. The Dirty Duck job was a flip, which was it's been a bit of a one-off compared to the rest of the portfolio, to be honest. We're buying commercial buildings. So we've recently bought the old newspaper house. It's called. It's a local newspaper factory and printing building. So we're in the middle of converting that and doing 14 units. So that's 11 resi and 3 commercial units in there. We've bought a big old building, which was an old drawing office, which the shipbuilding company that I mentioned before, who's building the submarines for our Navy, it's one of their old drawing offices. We've just got plans going in to put 26 apartments in there. And we're doing an office block where we're going to be putting some office spaces in another building. So yeah, we're really active at the minute with the commercial to ready type stuff.
Well, it's so great to hear as well, because this is at a time where there's a lot of negativity spoken about kind of property investing, and it sounds like you're not frightened by the kind of new legislation and framework of the Renters' Rights Bill and stuff. What are your thoughts on that? Because we see a lot of landlords exiting, so it's interesting to talk to someone who's kind of doubling down on building a portfolio.
Yeah, I think it's with the renters' rights. With having the letting agency, that is our bread and butter at the minute. I mean, we're talking about it daily. We're having to give updates to our landlords. So yeah, we feel that the renters' rights is actually going to be make the space better for professional landlords and professional developers who are doing things properly. So I welcome the renters' rights, absolutely. And we are our company, there's me and 2 other partners in the company, and we're all local lads, and we are investing heavily locally at the minute. So yeah, I think it is giving a positive story of our local town. We're local in here. The majority of our investment, it comes from local people as we take on private investment to fund these deals. So we are giving back to the local the businesses and people who are investing with us, and we're hopefully making the town look a bit brighter.
Well, it's amazing, and let's you mentioned very briefly there, kind of working with private investors. I know we'll have lots of people who kind of read this or listen or watch to this who think, actually, do you know what, there might be a way that I could work with Dan and the team, or I'd like to find out more. How can we direct people to you? What's the best way to sort of for people to get in contact?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook and Instagram. So Dan Linton and Dan Linton Property on Instagram, or Cornerstone Group is the company. So we have a website. We've got our investor information pack on there to download, which we can give examples of some of our deals, some of our rates that we offer, and security. So Cornerstone Group would be a good place to go to have a look. And Century Lettings for the agency, if anyone has any properties in the area that's want help with managing, or even if anyone wants any advice on the renters' rights or anything, they can get in touch, and I'll speak to anybody.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Dan, it's been amazing talking to you today. We couldn't do what we do at YPM without people like yourself. And I hope you don't mind me using the next phrase. I use it all the time. YPM is always about ordinary people who achieve extraordinary things in property. And you've got some amazing deals under your belt, and great things to come as well. So it's been a genuine pleasure talking to you, and thank you for sharing it with me and our YPM community today. So massive thanks.
No, thanks for the opportunity.